Yo, so last week I uploaded a video called 5 Principles of Building Muscle. A lot of you guys appreciated it, and that's great. And a lot of you guys had more questions. Specifically, Elliot, how do you manipulate these keys, these pillars, in order to build strength now? Since you've been watching my channel long enough, you know that there are different variable manipulations for strength and muscle building, right? So now, instead of talking about the things that are going to support you specifically in hypertrophy, we want to talk about things that are going to get you the most neurological response. Get your body to lift more weight, become stronger. So using the very same 5 pillars, which is volume, which is your reps and sets, your intensity, basically how much weight you use, your tempo, rest intervals, and frequency, right? Not in that particular order. We're going to manipulate the variables just a little bit. You know, all those change slightly when you're just working on strength. Generally speaking, with your volume or reps and sets, when you're building strength, you're going to keep your reps around 1, which is like 100% full out max effort, to no more than about 5 repetitions. Anything more than 5, then you start moving into hypertrophy. And that doesn't mean that hypertrophy training won't support you in your strength, but generally speaking, as a foundation of understanding for designing your own programs, you're going to want to keep your reps below 5. That being said, because there's an inverse relationship between reps and sets, if the reps are low, your sets can be really high. So oftentimes I'll do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sets. So if you're doing singles, you can do 10 singles, go really heavy, rest the prescribed amount of time that we're going to talk about in a moment, and then do it again for a single. Or you could do 5 sets of 2, 6 sets of 3, so on and so forth. The idea here is that the sets are high because the reps are really low. Now, with regard to the inverse relationships between volume and intensity, now that the volume has been manipulated a little bit, you can increase your intensity. See, if you're only doing 1 to 5 repetitions, you can add a lot more weight because you're not expected to get 8 to 12 repetitions. So you're talking intensity being 100% to like 85% or 85 to 100%. That's kind of where you're going to want to choose your weights. One of the things people often ask is, how do I know what that percentage is? I always say, if you can do the prescribed amount of reps that are prescribed in your program, you know, if you can't get 1, then obviously it's more than 100%. And if you could do more than about 4 or 5 repetitions, you're moving into about 70% rep range, and that is way too light. On to rest intervals. What I like to tell my athletes, and what I personally do myself when it comes to rest intervals for really heavy weight training, is to rest as long as you need to, as long as you can hit the prescribed amount of reps. So if you're doing singles or doubles, for example, and you just finished your set, what I would say is wait as long as you can until you can confidently do it again. Let's say it's 5 sets of 2. So after your second set of 2, I'd say, look, I don't even watch the clock. Rest as long as you need to be able to get it again. Time or shorter rest intervals are more important for building more muscle, but when you're trying to build strength, don't worry so much about the clock. Just make sure you hit those reps when you go back into your next set. The tempo is a little bit different with strength training in that it's not so important to follow a specific tempo simply because time under tension is not the issue. You really just want to move the freaking weight. Now, there's something you want to consider when you're actually pressing that weight off you or coming up out of your squat, and that is you want to move as fast as possible. That's going to help build your explosive capacity and add to your strength. But the way down, in my opinion, on your eccentric portion of the movement, your way down, you're going to want to not burn yourself out with too much time. It shouldn't take you longer than 1 or 2 seconds to move through the eccentric portion of the movement, and then you explode your way up out of it. When it comes to strength training, your frequency doesn't have to be nearly as high as during muscle building, depending on the intensity that you use. If you're using really high intensity, like 195, 90%, then you're going to want to keep your intensity, or you keep your frequency a bit low. So you're not going to want to hit an exercise more than once a week if you're going for max effort intensity. But if your intensity is a little bit lower, around 85%, then you're going to want to, then you might be able to add an extra day in to that program. So you'd be hitting that muscle or that movement twice a week. But again, only if the intensity is low enough that it allows you to do so. Now, again, none of these principles and parameters are written in stone. They're giving you a basic understanding about how to go about designing exercise programs. One thing for sure, when it comes to strength, it's more important for you to increase your neurological efficiency than anything else. And oftentimes, that means that some of these parameters that I shared with you go out the window in order for you to hit an exercise multiple times a week, in order to just train the pattern. A lot of times with strength, training the pattern is more important than the intensity or keeping the frequency low or any of the other things that I spoke about here. Once you learn a particular movement, then you could start manipulating the variables a little differently. And finally, the bonus parameter the same exact one I shared with you last time, is your attitude about how you go about your training is far more important than any scientific study or parameters that I even share with you in these videos. Hit your training hard, be focused and concentrated on the movement, on the exercise, have full confidence in yourself, and your program is going to yield you incredible results. Good luck.